Oh hey, welcome to Adventure Bug Gaming. My name is Ryan, and I was going to sit down and play some Stargrave, and I realized I didn't have the terrain I would like to play with. So I was like, well, I'll build it. I'm like, what's great? Concrete pillars. So I'm going to show you how to build them. Let's go check it out. Okay, starting off with the foam core with the paper ripped off. This is the Ready Board brand I'm using. I'm just going to cut out 2-inch wide strips and then follow it up by 1 5/8" strips. And then I'm going to cut them down to 4 inches high, but you can make it any height you want. 4 inches just seemed the right height, so there's not too much clutter on the board. Joining them together with tacky glue. Love the stuff, it holds really strong and it's not that expensive. Takes a little bit longer to dry than obviously like hot glue, but oh well. That's what I'm using, that's what's going to happen. If you choose to use a hot glue gun, make sure you watch your heat settings. It probably will melt the styrofoam if it's too hot when gluing it together. Now onto the base. Using a 2-inch square piece of chipboard that I cut out of a sheet I had lying around from the last project. Gluing it onto the Eileen's tacky glue again. If you need more weight, you could always use hot glue obviously on the base. Like, it would add that weight without sacrificing too much material wasted. Now I'm choosing to add a little curve around the bottom of all of them to add some more depth to them. You could do without it, but I just found it looked nicer than just these square columns. Gave more depth to the game when played, and well, it's one more thing to add that I felt was right. So I cut out a lot of them, a little longer than I needed, and then just glue them on, and then I'll trim off the excess later. The nice thing about using the wax paper is it keeps your work surface clean, and I have a work surface, not everyone does, so it might save your coffee table or your dining room table. And I'll keep it square as it sits and dries. Okay, I'm shaping the styrofoam with an emery board here. Just give it around the corners, take off the sharp edges, give it more manufactured look. Now on the gap filling, I'm using the spackling here with the dry time indicator. It's what I found at the Home Depot, and that's what I'm choosing to use. Use whatever you have. If you have Mod Podge, use that. Don't know how well that would work, but this is what I'm using, and it seemed to work not too bad. I like the way it was easy to use, and the drying time wasn't too long. Now that it's dry, you can barely tell it's on there. So we're going to just give it a quick sand with the emery stick to get off any ridges and bumps. That's the joy of using the spackle. It's used for drywalling, so it's pretty easy to use. And sandpaper of any kind will work with it. Greebles, that's kind of what they're called in the model making business. At least one of the names I know of. So I printed off these on my Ender 3 Pro. Obviously, not everyone has a 3D printer, so use what you have. You can make up plates out of cardboard. I'm using straws here to simulate pipes. It's bendy straws if you want to go really fancy, you know. I'm using polystyrene pieces, and the ladder also is polystyrene. As I start to texture the concrete pillars, it's one of the steps I really enjoy doing. Just building the columns is fun, but adding the textures, the bullet holes, the crumbling, it gives it life and it makes it more real for the world when you are battling in it, exploring. The terrain almost comes alive in its own character when you do this. Gives it history. Now I'm using the polystyrene ladder here, but you can make a ladder out of most any kind of plastic pieces. Like I said earlier, the bunch of balloons would work really well for a ladder. Or you could use staples. I've seen people use staples. And they just kind of stick it into the side of the concrete. I'm using this little carving tool. I can't remember where I acquired it from. But I've had it for a while, and it makes nice explosive little holes. Using the tinfoil ball, really gouge in a few areas, like push on it and then pick out any spots. Making sure there's no little dangling of the Eileen's tacky glue that kind of built up. Mod Podge, that's the Mod Podge with the black acrylic paint mixed in. So the reason I use the Mod Podge, you can use other glues. I just find it's really nice. It doesn't flow too much air, but it protects the styrofoam is what it comes down to. That's why I use it. Jeremy over at Black Magic Craft is the one who, I believe, kind of pioneered that system. As far as I know, I could be wrong on that. Just cover the whole model. Just keep it thin. You don't want to take away from too much of the detail, but you still want to get in all the nooks and crannies. So I'm choosing to prime it with a Rust-Oleum gray primer. It's giving me the base I need for the gray as we paint the columns, because we want to make them look like concrete and we don't want to spend too much time. We're building 12 of these. Obviously you can build more or less. Really up to you. Keeping it away from the material because you don't want to have splotches or running. Now that the model is totally painted with the primer, we're going to dry brush all over the whole model, almost in a stippling effect to give it that concrete look. Now, dry brushing is where you put paint on a dry brush and wipe off a lot of it onto a cloth or to paper towel. So it's just barely enough on there just to transfer to bring out the highlights on your model and give the desired need. If you need more on there, put more on. This is what really will sell the concrete look. Now to sell that these concrete pillars, or some of them are hollow, is I'm painting black into the vent areas to give it a void behind. And I'm choosing to paint the metal steps that I'll add metal paint later on. I'm doing a black over them. That way, if I miss a spot later on, it won't look as terrible. It's all about learning these little tricks that make painting easier. It is one aspect of this hobby that I've had to work the hardest at. It's the painting. It's not something that's come easy to me. It's taken time, a lot of time. I'm using a fog gray, which looks almost white, but it's not, on all the chips and scratches, to just give more detail to the model. Now painting the pipes, I chose to base them with a white, so then I didn't have to paint as many layers on top. So I only did like 1.5 for the red on most of them. It was just easier that way, I found. So I'm adding black acrylic paint to the silver morning to just darken it up. Simple as that, it's just too bright. Brick red and dark orange for the rust. These are the ones I've been using as of late, and they seem to work pretty well. When doing rusting effects, take your time. I find it's an art form in itself to find the right look of rust. So I constantly would switch between the brick red and the dark orange. And I'd also keep adding water to water it down, and mixing it on my palette also I'd be doing, not just on the model itself. Final step is using a wash. This is a homemade wash that I made using water, black acrylic paint, and a flow aid, which was jet dry. You can use dish soap. Concrete pillars for the gaming table. I really enjoyed making these. I hope you enjoyed watching. If you liked the video, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and as always, I'll be seeing you on our next adventure.